Alright, so we're going to start video 2, which is going to be linear pairs and missing angles. So we're going to add linear pairs to our list of vocabulary. So now we're going to take all the vocabulary we learned from the last video, and we're going to apply it to solve for missing angles. So by the end of this video, you should be able to set up an equation using vertical angles, linear pairs, or complementary angles. And once we have that equation, we should be able to solve. Alright, so the first vocabulary word that we have to deal with here is linear pair. It's a pair of adjacent angles whose non-common sides are a straight angle. So again, I always like to start with a picture, and it seems to make the most sense, and it's easy for me to explain. So 1 and 2 here, angle 1 and 2, are adjacent angles. I know that they're adjacent angles because they have this vertex and this shared side. So the key here that makes them a linear pair is that their non-common sides, meaning this side and this side, make up a straight angle, right? So in this case here, angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair. Now, with all linear pairs, which we'll see when we get to the postulate down below, is that if two angles form a linear pair, then that means that they must be supplementary. Now, this should make some sense because if two adjacent angles make up a straight line, then they should add up to be 180 degrees. Now, there's one thing that I want to point out here. If we set up this linear pair same way with angle 1 and angle 2, we know that in this picture, angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to 180 degrees. The one thing I want you to be careful with is later on when we get into, probably in about video 5, we're going to start to deal with triangles. Now, just because I add this triangle here does not change the fact that this portion is still a linear pair. So even though it's within a different picture, it still makes it a linear pair. So you're going to see some of that here when we start to deal with some of these examples down below, but that's just one thing I want you to be aware of later on. All right, so our first example, find the measure of all missing angles. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this question here is I see this little red box, or just a box in general, that tells me that this angle is 90 degrees. So I'm going to fill that in to make life a little bit easier. All right. The next thing I'm going to look for is something that I'm going to be able to solve. So I would take a look and see this straight line here, A to C. And I know all the angles on this line, on this side, have to make 180 degrees. So if I think 90 plus 60 plus some number equals 180. So what we're going to do here is we're going to solve this. We can replace this question mark with an X since there's no any other X's on this picture. So we can set this up as 150 plus X equals 180 and subtract 150 from both sides, and we'll get X equals 30 degrees. Okay, so now what I would do is I would label my 30 degrees in here in my picture so that I have it. All right. The next angle that I would focus on here is with this 30 degrees. I see that this looks opposite to it, and we should remember from video 1 that if these two straight lines make that little X pattern that we talked about, and the opposite angles are vertical angles, which makes them congruent. So if this angle here is 30 degrees, then this angle over here must also be 30 degrees. All right, now we got one more angle to find. So the next thing I'm going to look for again is any linear pair that I can deal with because I don't really have anything else. So let's take a look here. I think this straight line here makes up a linear pair with 30 and the angle that I want to find. So again, I can set up my equation as 180 minus 30. It's going to give me what I need. So 150 is going to be the angle, or the last angle that I'm looking for. And that's a 5, not a 6. So 150. All right, so the key is to look for specific things of information or specific vocabulary words that we could deal with. Complementary, linear pairs, and vertical angles are the big three that we're going to be dealing with. All right, so example 2. Again, I have this 90-degree angle here. All right, so I'm going to make sure that I know that this is all 90 degrees. And if you remember from class and our foundation stuff, that if this portion is 6x plus 3 and this portion is 3x plus 6, if I add them together, I'm going to get 90 degrees. So I'm going to set my equation up as 6x plus 3 plus 3x plus 6 equals 90, and I'm going to solve from here. So 6 and 3 makes 9x, 3 and 6 makes 9. And I can solve how we normally would with our two-step equations. So again, if you have to, you pause the video and slow down just to kind of get an idea on what's going on if I'm moving too fast. Alright, so now I got x equals 9. The examples here does say solve for all missing angles, so I do want to plug that 9 back in. It does not say solve for x. We talked about this, very important to read. Alright, so if I plug 9 back in, I'm going to get 6 times 9 plus 3, which is going to be 57 degrees. And then if I plug it back into this one, it will be 3 times 9 plus 6, which will give me 33 degrees. All right. Now I'm going to erase some stuff on this picture just to make it a little easier to deal with and to look at, because we do have some other angles that we still have to find. All right, so I have 57 degrees here and 33 degrees here. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to look at here is if this is 33, this should also be 33 because they are vertical angles. And I know that because of the x that these two straight lines make. All right, the next thing is I want to find another, either a vertical angle, a linear pair, or something that I can visualize in this picture. So I would take this straight line and look at this 33 and this missing angle to form a linear pair. So with that, I would do 180 minus 33. I would get 147, which is my missing angle over here. All right, and then the last one, I'll give you a little trick with the last one here. So the last one is this angle right here. What I know is this line is a straight line, and this kind of cuts it in half. So I see that this side has to be 90 degrees. So if this side is 90 degrees, then this side has to be 90 degrees, because 90 plus 90 is 180. So that's the other linear pair that I would look for in that picture. All right, so we got 2 more examples to go. All right, we're almost done here, but the key is to be able to find those things in the pictures. All right, so here we go, example 3. Now, this looks like it would be perfect setup for vertical angles. All you have is the x, and that's fine. But the problem is, this is x minus 33, and this is x minus 33. This is 142, which is the same as this, which is 142. But that doesn't really give us an equation that we can set up. So we have to look for either a linear pair or a complementary angles. But I don't see any right angle sign here, so we can't do that. So we definitely have to look for a linear pair. So I would focus on straight line. These two make a linear pair. So I would say x minus 33 plus 142 equals 180 degrees. I'm going to solve for my missing angle here. It's x plus 109 equals 180, and subtract 109 from both sides, and I would get x equals 71. Now again, just like last time, we don't want x, we want the missing angle. So we're going to go ahead and plug 71 back in, and we do 71 minus 33. We are actually going to get 38 degrees in both spots here. Okay, so last picture, all right, last example here. We got 245, x minus 39, and 32. So I'm going to solve for x and the missing angle, but here's one that comes up every once in a while. If we have this point here, the degrees that a full circle makes is 360. So if I have all these angles around a singular point, I know that they're 360 degrees. So I can actually add 245 plus 32 plus x minus 39 equals 360. And I can solve from there. 238, let's put these three together, plus x equals 360, and then I would subtract 238 from both sides, and x equals 122. Right? I would plug x equals 122 back in, and my answer for the actual angle is 122 minus 39. I don't actually have that done, so let's do some old school math here. Let's borrow the 1. 12 makes 3. Borrow the 1. And we should get 83 degrees. All right. So That's our last example. The one thing I want you to be careful of with all of these questions is you can never assume that something is 90 degrees. The only things you're really allowed to look for in a picture, if it's not specifically marked, is vertical angles, because it's created by two intersecting lines, or a linear pair, which are angles that make up a straight line. All right. Don't forget, write down some questions that you have about the video so when I come around I can answer them, and a short summary to help you guys study. All right, that's going to be it for video 2. I'll see you guys in video 3.